Welcome back to the PMC Project, the Positive Masculinity Crusade. Again, right off the top, listeners, if you would help us out, hit that subscribe button below, the red button below on YouTube. We're in a series now. On this one, it's been, I think, some great content about raising your standards, okay? How do you upgrade yourself? How can we do this, okay? We've talked a little bit earlier on our first part of this about your top 5 and what that means. The second part we talked about, just finished that up about deserve level. This one really kind of puts some things in place and keeps raising that level. The more you do in the stock market, people talk about putting a stop level, okay? The more profit you make, you just put in your stop levels up and you're not going to go below that. That helps protect those foundations you've made. I'm going to come to you early and often on this one, Ragnar. If you could take this away, boundaries, okay? How do we put those in? How do we stand up to people? How does this look like? Go ahead and take it away from there.
Well, for me, boundary, we talked about you raise your standards, you're raising your top 5, you're figuring that out. You're kind of getting your little mini constitution figured out, your checklist. Is this a net positive, net negative? You got your deserve level. You're kind of realizing, like, I deserve money, I deserve better money, I deserve a better partner, I deserve a better work environment, a bigger bank account, whatever. Once you've got clear on what that is, and sometimes that takes time, it usually takes time, but also sometimes you need to be around other people to kind of figure that out. Some quality people, top 5 people, to have some conversations and figure out in all the areas of your life what your standards need to be compared to where they were before, and also what you feel you deserve, and try to increase that deserve. But once you've gotten clear on what all that is, then you need to put boundaries in place, just like boundaries around a farm, boundaries between countries. You got to put a boundary in place so that that's protected, so that you don't slide back into your old ways of thinking, behavior, and slide back into that old self-image. And so it's been brought up earlier that, it's like a lottery. They get a lottery ticket and they get millions of dollars, and now they have this huge bank account. But they never put that boundary in there. They never increased the self-image and their deserve level. They deserved it, number one. And then if they did get to that, they never locked a boundary in place so they wouldn't slide back. And so many of those people, just a few years later are broke. They're back to being in their comfort zone because their unconscious programming, programming your computer, never got upgraded. That software never got upgraded. And it's operated on 1.0 instead of 4.0. And so that's what happens. And so your boundaries have to be to defend those new standards, those new deserve level and self-image. Your boundaries are in place to defend that, and you have to cultivate the confrontational energy to defend, because your significant other is going to push back on those boundaries. Your child, your puppy, your coworkers, your boss, they're all going to push on those boundaries consciously and unconsciously to try to test those. And it's kind of like your invisible fence you have for your dog. It doesn't have to be a huge display, but there needs to be a little electric shock there when somebody starts poking on the boundary, that they need to know that that's there and that be respected. And most people have very weak boundaries. And that's why they kind of marry the same type of person. They go from one job to the other, kind of same kind of job. They hang out with the same people they did when they were 15. Same kind of car, same everything. And so boundaries are to kind of put trust. Once you've elevated the ladder of success and you have your standards and your self-image and your deserve level there, then your boundaries are to kind of buttress those in place so they don't crumble down like a house of cards. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think sure. I think one of the things that makes it really hard for folks, okay, is that they start getting pushback, some feedback, okay, from their initial, whatever their social circle was. Oh, now you're too good for us. Okay, they get this kind of, but again, if you're well acquainted with our shame series, you'll just recognize those terms, that verbiage, as that's just shame button. Okay, you'll recognize those shame triggers. Okay, oh, you're a try hard. You're trying to get ahead. Of course. And if you're not going to help me get there, I'm going to hang out with different people. Okay, but there needs to be what you talked about, Ragnar. It's a term that we use a lot around here. Okay, confrontational energy. All right, you don't need to try for a better life if you're not going to be willing to have some confrontational energy. Number one, to get there. Number two, to keep that deal in place when you have it, and to build, not just keep it in place here. We're not trying to maintain anything, okay? We're trying to build to new and higher and bigger and better levels, okay? And so if you're not willing to have some confrontational energy, I think we get into a lot of that with some things when we hear about, turn the other cheek. A lot of times, a lot of New Testament mentality comes sneaking in here, especially in the church with people of faith, and next thing you know, we're trying to be nice to everybody, and we're fine with everybody in the world just bulldozing us and just running right over us, okay? And one of the books that's really helped us, I know people out there looking for resources. Again, if this is helping you out and you find value in this show, make sure you hit that subscribe button on there. One of the things, people ask us for resources all the time. And go ahead and keep sending those emails into the Crusader1921. It's Crusader1921@gmail.com. Send us those. We do get feedback, and we try to get back to people. One of the books that's really helped on this, Glover's book, you can get it on Amazon. Glover's book called No More Mr. Nice Guy. Okay. Don't just keep letting people run over you. It doesn't matter who it is. Coworker, your kids even. Now, when you get you brought this up, Ragnar, a minute ago, a bit ago. I'm going to come to you in a second about your dog even. Okay. Dog can pee all over the floor. If you don't train this dog and stay after this dog, then after a while, you'll come home, your dog will be sitting in your TV chair, okay, testing you. They know they don't belong in there. They know, but they're testing you, just like your spouse will, everybody else, okay? This thing about fit testing, I'm going to come to you a bed to go on this, okay? What does this mean, fit testing? How does this work in relationships? What does that have to do with boundaries? How does that work in here? Go ahead and take it away on that one for you, fit testing and boundaries.
The way that we identify what a fit test is by applying the second date rule. And so if what she did or what she said, if she would have done that on the first date, would there have been a second date? And if you say no, then most likely what you encountered was a fit test. Now, you look at fit tests, what are they? They're simply her way of internally testing you to see if you're still the guy. If you're worth marrying, if you're worth having children with, are you still the dude? Are you keeping the bears away? Going back to our 7 Rings series, are you keeping the bears away? Are you keeping food on the table? Those kind of things. And so that's what a fit test is. And you've got to recognize those, and you've got to pass those. At the end of the day, God created you as a man to be in charge, to be the leader of your home. Unfortunately, in Genesis 3, after Adam and Eve sinned, and Adam gets charged with the first sin, Eve was the one who ate the fruit first, but Adam's sin was that he was in charge of the garden. He was to tend everything in the garden and take care of it, and Eve was part of that. And he didn't take care of her. He didn't protect her. So she ate the fruit, he ate the fruit. Consequences of the sin for the woman was that her pain would increase in childbirth, and that most translations will say, and her desire will be for you, for her husband. That, and the husbands are like, oh yeah, that's great. Yeah, she's going to desire me. No, that's not what it means. It means that her desire is going to be for your place of authority. So as a consequence of sin, she's trying to always take charge of your family. And so you've got that fight of, you've got to place a boundary, a hard boundary there, that she's not going to do that. You have to use the word no from time to time. And I know it cuts against the grain of everything in our culture that says happy wife, happy life. Well, I'm here to tell you that's a bunch of bull. That is so false. Your wife is happy when she is able to be who God created her to be, when she's able to be a woman. If she has to be in charge of the family, she has to lead the family. She has to decide where we're going to spend money and where we're going to go on vacations and where we're going to live and how the house is going to look and when we're going to take care of the cars. If she has to decide all those things, she's being in the man in the family, and you're being, as a man, you're being the woman. But then at night, you expect her to be a woman. Guess what? It ain't going to happen. She can't flip the switch from being how she perceives acting like the man all day long, and then she can't turn around and be this soft feminine thing that you want her to be at night. And so it is so important that you understand how God created you to be, and that you walk in that, you live in that, that you take charge. When she says, where do you want to go eat? For goodness sakes, make a decision. Just say, I want Taco Bell. That's really what I want. You know, whatever it is. If you think that it's going to make her happy if she goes to the Mexican restaurant that night, then say, hey, I want it. I'm going to the Mexican restaurant tonight. That's okay to do that, but you need to take charge. You need to make a decision. And, you know, I just think it's so important. I think saying no to things in general is one of the most important words that you'll ever have in the English language. As far as setting boundaries, you have to say no. If you don't say no to people, then they will run your life. You can have all these things on your schedule. It doesn't matter. If you won't say no to somebody, they will schedule you. I mean, you won't have any time to breathe. And so you have to say no to some things. So that goes back to setting priorities. That goes back to, it goes back to your self-worth to a degree. But all these things that we talk about all the time, you know, if you don't set boundaries, you really don't value yourself very much. You really don't have a very high self-worth, I don't think. And so, you know, you definitely need to set boundaries. At the end of the day, boundaries are simply ways to protect, whether it's that little dog with the invisible fence, whether it's cattle that we have and we've got a fence to keep the cattle in, whether it's a playground fence to keep our little kids in. Boundaries are simply there to protect. And God gave us 10 boundaries early on to protect us. Jesus said, I'm going to take that down to 2. You know, but that's all a boundary is to protect. And so you need to protect yourself by setting some hard boundaries and saying no from time to time.
You know, Abednego, you know, I know about the 10 commandments and all. Really, there's just one rule. Okay. Initially, you just got one rule, but we couldn't handle that either. Okay. So now we got 10 rules. Then now we have thousands. And even now in our world, look at how many things that we have. Rules. How to eat, how to do this, so I don't want to get into all that thing, but here's what I would say as far as where all that goes. Okay. You talked about some of this stuff. God, you know, people argue about this and that. God created it. We're born to be leaders. Okay. And all kinds of people born to be leaders at different levels. Okay. But you can't be a leader of your friends, your home, your work. You can't be any kind of leader if you put up with disrespect. Okay. And that's what it is about when you don't have boundaries. You let people come in and disrespect everything. Disrespect your home, your place in the home, when you drive on the road, whatever. Okay. And you can't maintain that respect and others respect you without you have confrontational energy. We're going to get into that in a little bit. Our next show is going to be about how to maintain this on a daily, weekly level. So we're going to get into some Monday morning stuff here on the next show. As we get ready to close out, I just want to say, look, what you said, Abednego, okay, and Ragnar, you said the same thing, but in different ways, okay? You got to say no somewhere. You got to make a decision, okay? And having that confrontational energy. You can't maintain respect anywhere unless every once in a while, it's the old speech from the lion, right, Ragnar? Man, it's a Christopher Wath. Oh, it's so hot. He's so big, you know. You can't have that deal because next thing you know, the babes are coming over, starting to pick at you. And all your little kids running around, nipping at your toes. The jackals are coming in your area. So go look at Christopher Walken and the lion speech. It's on YouTube, okay? Everybody starts to invade, tear down your boundaries, tear at your self-image, your deserve level. You have to somewhere find it within yourself to have some confrontation. You got to have some confrontation, and we're going to have a talk right now. We're going to get this under control, okay? So, guys, as we get ready to close out again, the Positive Masculinity Crusade here. We've been in this series about raising your standards. Okay. We just finished up a couple other ones. The first one, the top 5, what that means. The second one, deserve level. This one about maintaining boundaries and how to set those. Okay. As we close out here, Monday morning stuff, Ragnar, what do you got for us? Tips, wisdom as we get ready to close this show?
I think you need to, we talk about basically like having a rubber band around your rings like that, some on your mirror, writing down in a spiral notebook, a la Tracy, some your day affirmation things. This stuff, the classic line, Rome built in a day. But I mean, take some time. Get at least one or two protein friends around you that you can discuss ideas and things. And that's when you're going to start getting traction on this. If you're still sitting on your Xbox and your sweats and you got Cheetos on your shirt, and that's what you're doing, and you're going to stay in this mess. But if you can start making these little steps, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with the first step, and so if you can start making those steps, you will start building some traction. You'll start getting some small wins. And when you start getting those small wins, every small win you get will slightly raise that self-image and that deserve. So that's what I recommend as soon as possible.
I love that. Put it simplest, man, start getting some wins. Get traction. Get some wins. Abednego, quick hit real quick before we close out on this, buddy.
I think for me, the biggest thing is just say no. Learn how to say no. Set some boundaries. Quit trying to be the nice guy all the time. Quit trying to bend over backwards all the time to please your wife, to please your boss, whoever. When it comes to your wife, make decisions that are going to make you happy and run with that. God designed her to come alongside you. That's why she came from your rib, to come alongside you and help you in your mission, not for her to be in charge. And so I know that this cuts against the grain for some people. And I know that people are going to say, well, you're supposed to love her as Christ loved the church and Jesus loved her sacrificially. Yeah, but look a couple sentences after that. It also says, love her as you love yourself. And so, you got to put yourself in there somewhere. You love your neighbor as you love yourself. And so, is at somewhere you got to have a mission. You got to have something that you're doing. She's going to come alongside you, but she's not going to do that if you're bending over backwards all the time to try to please her. And so that's the boundary for me. You got to say no. You got to be going your way and have her come alongside you. That's where you got to start setting your boundaries.
I think that's a really good point. And I've heard it and we've said it here before. If you want your girl to be miserable, just give her everything she wants. Believe me,
yeah.
She'll be miserable. Okay. So Crusader here signing off for Abednego and Ragnar. PMC project here on this one. It's just getting toward finishing up our series on raising your standards. This one about boundaries. Go back and check that out again. Hit the red button below. Subscribe for us. We'll come back and we'll do another show here real soon. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll be back in touch. Thanks.